Kobanî, officially Ain al-Arab, is a city in the Aleppo Governorate in northern Syria, lying immediately south of the border with Turkey. As a consequence of the Syrian Civil War, the city has been under control of the Kurdish YPG militia since 2012. In 2014, it was unofficially declared to be the administrative center of the Kobanî Canton of the Autonomous Federation of Northern Syria, Rojava. From September 2014 to January 2015, the city was under siege by Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Most of the city was destroyed and most of the population fled to Turkey. In 2015, many returned and reconstruction began. Prior to the Syrian Civil War, Kobanî was recorded as having a population of close to 45,000. The majority of inhabitants were Kurds, with Arab, Turkmen, and Armenian minorities. Name: the Ottoman name of a village east of Kobanî's location was Arab Pina, Spring of the Arabs. The Arabic name, Ain al-Arab, is a translation of this. The word spring came from the creek that used to flow east of the village. The location was called Spring of the Arabs because in summer Arab nomads used to bring the herds to the location. Kobanî was built between the village of Arab Pina in the east and the village of Mursid Pina in the west. This village was located south of a small lake that dried in the 60s. The name Mursid Pina is still used as the name for the village and the railway station in the Turkish side. Both the above-mentioned villages are parts of today's Kobanî. The name Ain al-Arab was introduced officially by the Syrian government as part of a broader Arabization effort in the 1980s, although older people say that the Syrian government used this name from the 40s. The origin of the name Kobanî is the word company, referring to the German railway company who built that section of the Kobanî-Baghdad Railway from 1911. An alternative explanation for the name is that during the French Mandate for Syria and the Lebanon, the French located a company of the troops in the location where Kobanî was built. The Kurdish people in the area adapted a considerable number of French words into Kurdish, including the word company that became Kobanî. Climate, history, Ottoman Empire and before prior to World War I, the area was mainly populated by semi-nomadic Kurdish tribes, many but not all part of the militia confederation. These tribes had progressively migrated in from the north during the 19th century, pushing back the Arab tribes which had previously occupied the area. Local Kurds living in the plains to the east of the modern town reportedly provided lodgings at their encampment for a French-led archaeological team on its way to survey the nearby ancient Assyrian site of Arslan Tashi in the summer of 1883. As of 1892, there were 3 homesteads situated in the area. During the construction of the Baghdad Railway, Kurdish raiders from the Basrawi and Shafan Bey clans, rivals who lived south and east of today's Kobanî, reportedly harassed workers attempting to mine basalt from the nearby hills, partially owing to the fact that the German companies responsible for its construction were lax in providing payment and compensation to local landowners. German engineers staying in the area from 1912 to 1913 described Arab Una as a small Kurdish village around 35 kilometers east of the Euphrates, comprising a small cluster of square mud brick huts, many with domed roofs. The local chief's hut was notable among these in its incorporation of European-style doors and windows and its concrete flooring. The area was apparently also known for its swarms of biting sandflies. The newly built town began to form south of a simple train station built in 1912 along the railway by workers from the nearby town of Suruk. The train station was part of a railway project launched by the Ottoman government to connect Baghdad with Berlin, Germany. Armenian refugees fleeing the Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire settled in the newly built town around 1915, and were soon joined by more Kurds from nearby areas. French Mandate. Many of the Kurds who settled in Kobanî were originally from the Kurdish regions in Turkey. Some fled prosecution following the Kurdish-led Sheikh Said rebellion in the country in 1925. After demarcation of the border with Turkey along the railway line in 1921, the northern part of Mersaid-Pınar was left on the other side of the border. This small settlement is incorporated in the Suruk district and still has a little railway station and a border crossing gate. By the middle of the 20th century, there were 3 Armenian churches and 2 schools in the town, but many Armenians emigrated to the Soviet Union in the 1960s while others moved to bigger cities, including Aleppo and Beirut, as well as cities in the USA and other countries. The town was also home to a small Syriac Orthodox community. The number dwindled rapidly and the town's only Syriac Orthodox church was demolished in the early 1960s. The city's infrastructural layout was largely planned and constructed by French authorities during the mandatory period, and a number of French-built buildings were still standing and in use until recently. During this period, the city of Suruk served as the regional center of Kobanî. The area was marked by several border crossings with Turkey, unsanctioned by either the Turkish or French mandatory governments. The crossings became a source of numerous Turkish complaints and led to the establishment of a French intelligence office in Kobanî to monitor border activity. Throughout the 20th century, the border remained officially closed even as the neighboring towns of Tel Abyad and Jarablis, both of which had smaller Kurdish populations, were allowed to have commercial border crossings, a situation which economically marginalized Kobanî for many years. There was however limited traffic at the Kobanî-Mersaid-Pınar gate and passengers from Kobanî often crossed through it to travel by train to Aleppo. By 2010, as a result of war in the Syrian side, traffic through this gate increased and at times wounded and sick people could cross to the Turkish side while trucks carrying goods crossed into Kobanî. Mersaid-Pınar, Syria pre-autonomy. When Syria gained independence from France in 1946, the intelligence building served as the political office of the Kobanî area's highest-ranking local administrator. Kobanî started to develop as a city in the 1950s when it was further separated from Suruk as a result of the Turkish government mining of the border area. Syrian Civil War. Siege by ISIL. The People's Protection Units took control of Kobanî on the 19th of July 2012. Since July 2012, Kobanî has been under Kurdish control, while the YPG and Kurdish politicians anticipate autonomy for the area, which they consider part of Rojava. After similar less intense events earlier in 2014, on the 2nd of July the town and surrounding villages came under a massive attack from fighters of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. On the 16th of September, ISIL resumed its siege of Kobanî with a full-scale assault from the west and the south of the city. On the 6th of January 2015, the Combined Joint Task Force targeted 8 airstrikes in the city, destroying 14 ISIL fighting positions and a building. The Syrian authorities in Kobanî and other Kurdish towns evacuated the government offices and centers without any fighting taking place between the Syrian and Kurdish forces. Contrary to the claims and fears that Turkish forces would enter the Kurdish regions inside Syria, such an action did not take place to this date. Kobanî Canton has been attacked by ISIL militants for several months. In September 2014, militants occupied most of Kobanî region, seizing more than 100 Kurdish villages. As a consequence of the ISIL occupation, up to 200,000 Kurdish refugees fled from Kobanî Canton to Turkey. Turkish authorities did not allow the refugees to enter with any vehicles or livestock that they had. In captured villages, militants committed massacres and kidnapped women. IS militants, however, were not able to occupy all of Kobanî itself, as the YPG and YPJ forces managed to defend a part of Kobanî and later several nearby settlements. After weeks of isolation, as a result of Turkey blocking arms and fighters from entering the town, due to the general hostility of the Turkish establishment towards Kurds with any links to the PKK, the US-led coalition began to target ISIL with a larger number of airstrikes. As a result of US pressure, Turkey allowed a force consisting of 150 Peshmergas to enter from the Kurdistan region with heavier weapons and cross from Turkey into Kobanî. This and the heavy bombardment of ISIS positions by US and allies planes aided the YPG in forcing ISIL to retreat and gradually leave the town. However, according to a YPG official, Turkey was still blockading the town, rendering the position of the YPJ in Kobanî as vulnerable. Nonetheless, on the 20th of October there were reports that Turkey, under significant US pressure, would allow Kurdish fighters from Iraqi Kurdistan to cross into Kobanî. About 150 Kurdish troops were admitted on the 29th of October, which then began to turn the tide of the siege in favor of the Kurds. The YPG reportedly forced ISIL to retreat from most of Kobanî on the 26th of January 2015, thus lifting the siege apart from mopping up operations in areas where YPG forces believed ISIL leaders might be hiding. The city is currently under YPG control. Reaction. In September 2014, Defend International launched a worldwide campaign aimed at, among other things, to raise awareness about Kobanî, and the brutal attacks its residents were subjected to, and to build a bridge between potential partners and communities whose work is relevant to the campaign, including individuals, groups, communities, and NGOs. In October 2014, President of Defend International, Dry, Widad Ikrawi, dedicated her 2014 International for Peace Award to, among others, all residents of Kobanî because, she said, facts on the ground demonstrate that these peaceful people are not safe in their enclaves, partly because of their ethnic origin and/or religion, and they're therefore in urgent need for immediate attention from the global community. She asked the international community to make sure that the victims are not forgotten. They should be rescued, protected, fully assisted and compensated fairly. On the 4th of November 2014, Dr. Ikrawi said that a massacre can be avoided if there is a well-organized and well-defined plan on how to deal with it, a plan that sets out the strategic and tactical activities to be undertaken at the international, regional and local levels, adding that journalists, humanitarian and human rights organizations are not allowed to pass through Turkish checkpoints near the border. Reconstruction. The Kobanî Reconstruction Board, closely linked to PYD, has asked for international assistance. According to a spokesman for the Syrian Kurds who control the town, Kobanî has been 70% destroyed. There has been several attempts to support Kobanî, especially from the Kurdish communities in Turkey and Iraq. Assistance was also offered from several European organizations. However, as of May 2015, Turkey has kept the border closed but allowed some materials to reach the city. The international community, including the USA, did not seem interested in rebuilding the town, nor to pressure Turkey on the matter. By May 2015, more than 50,000 people have returned to the destroyed town. Also by May, the Kobanî authorities, with the help of the municipality of Diyarbakir, managed after 8 months of no running water, to restore the water pump and supply for the urban area, repaired the pipelines and cleaned the main water tank. By the beginning of September 2015, most of Kobanî was still in ruins. No major rebuilding projects were to be seen. Most of the town's inhabitants were still outside Syria. By May 2016, despite the challenges of the blockade by Turkey, reconstruction and return of inhabitants is well on the way. June 2015 massacre. On the 25th of June 2015, fighters from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant detonated 3 car bombs in Kobanî, close to the Turkish border crossing, and launched a surprise assault on the town. At least 220 Kurdish civilians were massacred in mass killings by ISIL fighters in the homes are killed by the group's rockets or snipers, and many more were injured by the attack on the town, making it one of the worst massacres carried out by ISIL in Syria. In another report, Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and spokesman for the Kurdish People's Protection Unit said that more than 200 Kurdish civilians were massacred. Women and children were among the bodies found inside houses and on the streets of Kobanî, as well as some of the villages. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that ISIL fired at everything that moved. Islamic State also committed a massacre in the village of Butan, about 20 kilometers south of Kobanî, executed at least 23 Syrian Kurds, among them women and children. Kurdish forces and the Syrian government claimed the vehicles had entered the city from across the border, an action denied by Turkey. On the 3rd of July 2015, Human Rights Watch published a report on the massacre that took place on the 25th of June 2015, revealing more details on what took place on this and the next day in Kobanî and some of the Kurdish villages in the region.